Welcome to Fear Less, Do More, the podcast where we dive into the minds of some extraordinary and fearless businesses and people who are challenging the status quo and who are helping to change the world of business around us. I'm your host, Gill Hunter. I'm the managing partner at Square One Law. On each episode, I'll be chatting to innovators, change makers and trailblazers, where we explore the unique journeys of our guests. We'll delve into the fears they've faced, the setbacks they've overcome, the lessons they've learned along the way. We'll uncover the secrets behind their resilience, and we'll find out what motivates them to keep going even in the face of adversity. We'll also have a few laughs along the way too. My guests are all leaders who relentlessly pursue their passions, not only to create a better tomorrow, but who inspire us to push our own boundaries, those who fear less and do more. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today I'm really excited about our guest. She's an incredible woman, somebody who I have got the pleasure to know over the last year, and it really is something very privileged to hear Lucy's story and the things that have led her to create a really exciting business too. So I'm not going to steal her thunder, and I'm going to introduce Dr. Lucy Reynolds. Lucy, thank you for joining me today. As I say, I'm a big admirer of yours, and one of the reasons why is because when you look at everything you do, you're a doctor of philosophy, you're a researcher, you're an academic, you're a business owner, you're a charity chair. The list goes on. How on earth do you manage to manage all of those different roles?
Well, I love what I do, and I'm so passionate about challenges to change perception of disabilities. It's really important for me to combat the prejudices and inequalities that disabled people face, and I do this in any way that I can to support the disabled community.
And you do it brilliantly. And what you say is your mission is to explore, challenge, and change perceptions of disability. And even that your company name, which is We Are All Disabled, is quite a challenging name. It challenges the perceptions of disability. Why is this mission so important to you?
Well, for me, cerebral palsy is part of who I am. And I lead a very active and fulfilling life. Like a lot of disabled people, I'm still marginalised from society. And I'm passionate about changing the way that disabled people are represented and perceived as the other.
And that's something that I think it challenges the perception straight away, doesn't it? When you say I'm very comfortable with the fact that I have cerebral palsy and I live a fulfilling life, people immediately will sit up and listen and go, oh, that's a different perspective, because I think people get conditioned to treating disabled people as victims.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant to have a role model like you.
And that's what we need to stop, because we all have unique qualities and strengths, and we're all different, but all of us are marginalised by society in some way.
Yeah. And one of the things I've heard you say quite frequently is, in order to get comfortable with these things, we have to get uncomfortable first.
Yeah.
But how do you start those uncomfortable conversations? How do you start that off?
So it's being able to provide a safe and supportive space to have those conversations, and tell a story as a disabled person. At first it was very, very challenging, because I come from an academic background. Someone used to do that, but I found that through sharing my own experiences, people have really opened up and become more and more more responsible. They share their story, but they share their story, which is also helped me to share my story even more.
Yeah, and you know, and the voices of disabled people are not heard enough in business.
And I strongly believe that the more we open ourselves up to difficult conversations and listen to who we are, the more we can challenge these perceptions.
I think that's a quality that's often overlooked in leaders, is that ability to be vulnerable and to go, actually, I don't know all the answers, and this is me, my whole self, and you know, and trust that people will accept that that's you, and that's the best way for you to perform is for you to be your true, authentic self, whatever that looks like. In the round. So Lucy, you know, you've got your new business, We Are All Disabled. In 5 words, can you tell me what that business does?
Yeah, it's challenging perceptions through open conversations.
Oh, well, that's a really easy thing to remember, isn't it? Challenging conversations through open conversations. And I think that, you know, knowing what you do, I think that encapsulates it sort of perfectly. What was the spark for the business? What gave you the idea to start it up?
So I'd already established myself as a consultant working with organisations to challenge perception of disability. We All Disabled actually began through a blog throughout the food which I started throughout the first national lockdown, because I felt this with an ideal time to promote empathy and understanding towards the disabled people, because we're all marginalised from society, and for a while we're all disabled and we're all in together. So the feedback I received led me to conclude that nowadays one of the most significant barriers to inclusion is that people feel awkward around disability because they have fear of saying or doing the wrong thing that they might, and they worry about offending the disabled person. I believe we need to open conversations around this, and this led me to the disruptor We All Disabled Disruptor Development Program.
Yeah, and I think that's that. Yeah, you've sort of hit the nail on the head there. People don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable, and they don't want to ask difficult questions. And I always remember you saying to me when you first met me, if you don't understand what I say, just ask. Don't pretend.
It's really just pretend. I always know when somebody's pretending because they get the wrong end of the stick and they just walk away.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame.
Yeah, and that leads to disappointment on both sides, doesn't it? You know, and if somebody would just have the confidence to say, Lucy, can you just repeat that?
Yeah. But they don't have confidence in the work that we're doing to We All Disabled in a confident mood because we're having conversations.
Yeah. I mean, you talk a lot about conversations. And so here's an uncomfortable question from me. The name We Are All Disabled will be controversial in some people's eyes because I've heard, I have a son who's autistic, and people say things like all the time, like, we're all on the spectrum. And a lot of autistic people really don't like that because they think, well, no, we're not, and stop devaluing my disability. How would you react? How would you respond to that?
I think it's a great question. And this is the controversy subject that we want to embrace. Throughout the disability rights movement have made huge steps to empower disabled people, and I'm truly grateful for the invaluable work that they've done, because without which I probably wouldn't have achieved what I have today. However, I believe it's time to move on and view disability as part of the human experience. So the idea behind it, that we all disabled, that everybody has something which limits them from participating in society, and therefore to classify for me to classify people as non-disabled or disabled is potentially unrealistic and unrealistic. Disability has started to be acknowledged in my community, and the conversations about mental health and disability are starting to open. Open up. But I encourage disabled people to talk about their disability and be confident and proud for who they are. For me, cerebral palsy is part of who I am, and it's one of the very characteristics that makes me a unique individual.
And that was another of my questions for you. Clearly you've got lots of lived experience, having lived as a disabled person from birth. How does that lived experience shape your business?
Well, I think it's vitally important. Obviously, I've got the academic experience from the research I've done, but I think my lived experience is really and then being able to embrace that and talk about that is a conversation starter. It really gets people going, because I know when I go to events, when I do consultancy, that when I talk about disability, people are more likely to come to me, to open up and to join the conversation in the room.
Yeah, I think it comes back to that role models thing as well, doesn't it? It's about, I'm a great believer, you can't be what you can't see. So if disabled people don't ever see disabled people who have businesses, who are, chairs of boards, who are academics, researchers, consultants, all those things that you are, then it's very difficult for them to think, actually, I could do that. And I think the more we involve disabled people in society, then the more opportunities will naturally open up.
And I definitely agree with that, because people won't view disability as so different, and we won't be perceived as the other.
Yeah, and I think you're right. There's the range of disabilities and conditions that fall into that. Everybody does have something, and even if you don't consider yourself to be disabled, there may well be something where you feel like you've been held back, and that might be because of your sexuality or your social background. So it's taking the empathy from that to put yourself in that situation, which is challenging, because disabled people haven't had those voices historically. So Lucy, one of the strings to your bow is that you're also an academic. You're a doctor. You have a PhD. What was your PhD about?
My PhD looked at perception of disability in the British press, and how disabled people were represented in that. I explored the voice of disabled people.
So you were talking to disabled people?
Yeah, I interviewed disabled people and disabled journalists and focus groups and individual interviews.
So disabled journalists specifically?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Disabled and non-disabled, just to get their opinions and see the differences.
And was there a stark contrast?
There was a stark contrast, yeah. There was a stark contrast. I think, because I think people who didn't have a disability, again we go back to this fear There was fear about how to approach a story. Fear when they offend somebody. One journalist who was interviewing me at the time for TV work said, when I interviewed her after, and she said, "Oh, I was worried about interviewing you, Lucy. If I didn't understand what you said, what it is you were saying, how would I then go back to ask you, could we use subtitles on your interview?"
So
It's quite shocking, really.
Yeah, so something, really straightforward. Yeah. Okay, so that must be one of the most surprising things that came out of your research. Yeah. And I presume that research that you've done you use what you've done there. You talk about the affirmative approach. What's that?
So the affirmative model promotes rights and empowerment of disabled people, and we talk about the lived experiences of disability rather than the perception of disability. And until our voices are heard, we can't really move on from the social model or medical model of disability. Disabled people were headed away and excluded from society from too long. And though that these laws has prejudices on anyone, I believe that's really important to get our voices out there to change perceptions of disability.
And I think it's really important as well that we look at disability differently and talk about what people can do and the value that people bring and the different perspectives that disabled people have. It really frustrates me with my son that it's always focused about what he can't do and what support does he need on the things he can't do. But he's brilliant at some things that other people wouldn't be.
And it's all about embracing that, isn't it? Just celebrating that you do this.
Absolutely, you're right. It's uniqueness, and everybody is unique in some way.
Yeah.
And just because you have cerebral palsy, you will be that doesn't mean you're the same as everybody else who has cerebral palsy. And different people's experiences will be different in those circumstances. I could talk about it all day. So, we've talked a bit about work, and we've talked about academic. What's Lucy at home like? What do you do for fun?
Well, I have 2 poodles.
Oh, yeah.
Peggy and Dolly, who I love to take out for walks. I love going out with family and friends. And I love travel. I love travel.
Well,
I love going... I've been over to America, Australia. I love visiting different countries to experience their culture.
Yeah, travel, obviously opens your mind to lots of possibilities. Have you seen differences in the way that disabled people are treated in different countries and cultures?
Yeah, I think Western countries are very different to how disability is treated in the Eastern countries.
Okay. Is it easier to get around in a wheelchair in West?
I mean, I often go to America and Italy because it's really easy over there. Wherever you go, you can be able to get around.
No, that's good. So
obviously every country has its positive and negative with access first.
So your poodles obviously are an important part of your life, as anybody who has a dog will tell you. And they are the most intelligent dogs as well, aren't they? Yeah. What sort of crazy things do they get up to?
Oh, well, Dolly, she's old now, she's 16.
Oh, she's an old lady.
But she's bad-tempered. She bites everybody, but she's still very, very intelligent. She knows what biscuit time, food time. Peggy, she just loves that cuddle.
Oh,
yeah.
Is she younger?
She's younger, she's 10.
Right, yeah. Oh, they're lovely dogs. I think that's a really nice way to end, actually, on a really positive note. I think dogs, they accept you as you are, no matter what, don't they? they celebrate uniqueness and they don't care. They will find a way to connect with you.
Yeah, they do.
So it's a nice positive note to end on. I wish you absolutely every success with the new business. I think it's a brilliant idea, and thank you ever so much for being a guest on our podcast.
Thank you, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Fear Less, Do More. All of our guests come from a diverse range of backgrounds, but they all share a common drive to face their fears, take action, and create meaningful impact. If you've enjoyed this episode of our podcast, please follow us, Square One Law, on Instagram and LinkedIn, and share the content with your friends, family, and networks. Thank you, and see you again on our next episode.